Good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. World Press Freedom Day, May 3rd, 2024. Today, we highlight the vital role of a free and independent press in shaping public opinion, holding those in power accountable, and raising awareness about critical issues like the environmental crisis, as is the theme for this year. Despite the importance of the press freedom faces significant threats worldwide, including censorship, harassment, violence, and economic and political pressures. La République stands out as one of the worst jailers of journalists in Africa, with a history of stifling press freedom, intimidation, and persecution of journalists, resulting in the killing of journalists and forced exile, and suppression of independent media houses. To address this, governments must respect and protect press freedom. Media outlets must prioritize environmental reporting and amplify diverse voices. Civil society must as well support and advocate for press freedom, and individuals must engage with media critically and support independent journalism. By promoting and protecting press freedom, it is possible to build a more sustainable, equitable, and just future for all. Well, back at what is happening on the home front on May 1st, 2024, International Labor Day, the streets of Ambazonia were eerily deserted with no signs of celebrations or spectators, as the population chose to prioritize their struggle for independence and liberation from the occupation of La République. The people of Ambazonia made a collective statement by staying indoors, observing a ghost town day, in protest and rejection of the idea of celebrating a day that is meant to honor workers' rights and contributions. While in a powerful message, President Sako rallied support and resilience amongst the people of Amazonia, highlighting the economic hardship, political oppressions, and destruction of key institutions that they face under occupation. President Sako emphasized the determination and resolve of the Ambazonian people to achieve independence and rebuild their nation, and called on the international community to support Ambazonia's cause and fight for freedom. The message served as a timely reminder of the ongoing struggle for freedom and self-determination in Ambazonia, and the need for the international community to take notice and act in support of the Ambazonian people by choosing not to celebrate International Labor Day on May 1st. The people of Ambazonia has sent a strong signal that their priority is independence and freedom, and that they will not be distracted by celebrations and festivities until Ambazonia gets to Boya. Well, it is about time that we have the prime headlines usher us into the rest of the full briefings of Undaunted tonight.
Special announcement. In a groundbreaking move that resonates with the echoes of diplomacy and unity, President Samuel Sako is set to grace the Brazilian press with his esteemed presence. This visit isn't just a courtesy call, it's a bridge between continents, an effort to forge a diplomatic partnership and shine an international spotlight on the plight of Ambazonia. Brazil, known for its vibrant culture and spirited community, once again proves its commitment to global harmony as it stands by Ambazonia, rekindling the bonds forged back in 2019 when Bareri became a beacon of hope. by officially recognizing and supporting the Ambazonian cause. Mark your calendars. On Monday, May 6th, 2024, catch President Sako live on podcast Voices at 4 p.m. EST, 9 p.m. Amber Time, featuring the insightful Seder SD Aru and Ifadola Monica. Dive into a revetting discussion that promises not just to enlighten, but also to inspire. The diplomatic journey continues on Tuesday, May 7th, 2024, as President Sako joins the panel on podcast Influenciadores, anchored by the dynamic quartet of Tuli Rocha, Luciano Machado, Marcia Jodita, and Reverend Commando. Tune in at 4 p.m. EST, 9 p.m. Amber Time for an engaging session that's bound to captivate. These monumental appearances encapsulate more than just talks. They signify hope, unity, and the relentless pursuit of freedom for Ambazonia. Echoing across the vast expanses, don't miss this exceptional journey of diplomacy and dialogue. Stream live across all ABC Amber TV platforms. Be part of history in the making. Join us in standing with Ambazonia, in seeking justice and forging alliances that span continents. Let your voice be heard. Let's make a difference together. Next week begins a new chapter. Be there, be inspired, be part of the change.
Here are the prime headlines for tonight. Well, tonight, Undaunted is celebrating World Press Freedom Day. Meanwhile, on the 1st of May, Ambazonians gave the celebration of workers a non-event status. La Republic de Cameroun's bad colonial government scares foreign investors, says lawyer Roland. Well, tonight there is a whole lot of news for us today. Ambazonians must liberate themselves from a country with unfair laws. Also, bulldozers set ablaze for working on Monday in Tugi Bamenda Road. Well, that's a very interesting report because road construction company loses one bulldozer for not respecting the Monday, April 29th ghost town. Well, that's a full report there. Meanwhile, ASA uplift ban on celebrations in Big Babanki. Well, the people of Big Babanki can now celebrate marriages, birthdays, and other celebrations following the lift of the ban. Meanwhile, in the African scene, Togo parliamentary election, concerns over presidential power grab and democratic erosion continues. Let's get the news in full briefings. Well, the media plays a vital role in shaping public opinion, influencing political discourse, and holding those in power accountable. A free and independent press has the power to expose corruption and abuse of power, amplify marginalized voices, provide a platform for diverse perspectives, investigate and report on critical issues such as the environmental crisis. And that is why in December 1993, the United Nations General Assembly proclaimed May 3rd as World Press Freedom Day, following the recommendation of UNESCO's General Conference. This day commemorates the anniversary of the Declaration of Windhoek, a landmark document adopted by African journalists in 1991, which emphasizes the importance of a free, independent, and pluralistic press in promoting democracy, economic development, and human rights. Now, this is where we will begin the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. How are you doing, sir?
Splendid on you. Good evening, Ambazonians. Well, today, May 3rd, 2024, marks the 30th anniversary of World Press Freedom Day, a global celebration of the fundamental human right to freedom of expression and the essential role of a free press in shaping public opinion and holding those in power accountable. This year's theme is a press for the planet. Journalism in the face of the environmental crisis, which highlights the critical importance of journalism and press freedom in raising awareness about the global environmental crisis and its far-reaching consequences. Over the past decade, the world has witnessed unprecedented environmental disasters, from devastating wildfires to catastrophic floods, and droughts. The climate crisis has become a pressing global issue, demanding urgent attention and action. Press freedom has played a crucial role in informing society about the state of the climate and environment, highlighting the consequences of human activities and promoting sustainable development. Well, in the face of the environmental crisis, journalists have investigated and exposed environmental abuses and corruption, amplified the voices of climate activists and scientists, provided critical information on climate change and its impact, held government and corporations accountable for their actions. Well, in this context of the environmental crisis, press freedom is essential to expose environmental abuse and corruption, amplify marginalized voices, provide critical information on climate change and its impact, hold government and corporations accountable for their actions.
Well, despite its importance, press freedom faces significant threats worldwide. Journalists and media outlets are often subjected to censorship and restrictions, harassment and intimidation, violence and murder, economic and political pressures, which is why governments must respect and protect press freedom, ensuring a safe and enabling environment for journalists to work, while media outlets must prioritize environmental reporting, amplifying diverse voices and perspectives, as well as have civil society support and advocate for press freedom mandatorily, recognizing its critical role in promoting democracy and addressing the environmental crisis. Individuals as well could facilitate press freedom by engaging with media critically, seeking out diverse sources, and most importantly, supporting independent journalists. Well, as we celebrate World Press Freedom Day today, May 3rd, 2024, we recognize the indispensable role of journalism and freedom of expression in building democratic society and addressing the global environmental crisis. Press freedom must continually be promoted and protected, ensuring that journalists can work safely and independently to inform society and hold those in power accountable, because only through a free and independent press can we build a more sustainable, equitable, and just future for all. Well, May 1st, 2024 is known for International Labour Day. It has come and gone. What is left to be remembered of it in Ambazonia is that it was a non-event. Ghosts shouldered the celebration in Ambazonia as streets were deserted and the colonial ceremonial ground, like in Bamenda, was void of spectators. Images of celebrations in any part of Ambazonia are loyalists to the colonial regime that were transported in colonial military vehicles to and fro. Some of such images were simply stage managed just to lie to the world that normalcy has returned. The question is, why celebrate Labor Day in the war-torn Ambazonia?
Well, Ambazonians gave me first a non-event status. The people of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia have their priorities, and celebrating May 1st, 2024 Labor Day is not part of it. Would like to take a look at this video closely and you see the streets are empty. Well, that goes a long way to show that celebrations is far from being Ambazonians' priority. Getting the international communities to side with Ambazonia to push out La Republique out of Ambazonia territory is more occupying than what is considered the distraction of feasting. Speaking of getting the international community to side with Ambazonia in forcing La Republique back to its denied territory, President Sako sent out a message during the International Labour's Day, which from it we get to see that core focusing on what is happening in Ambazonia, the struggle for liberation, and not distracted by what is happening in the world. President Sako's message aimed to rally support and inspire resilience amongst the people of Ambazonia in the face of challenges, including economic hardship and political oppression. He acknowledged their sacrifices, outlines the injustices Ambazonians face under occupation, and emphasizes their determination to achieve independence and rebuild their nation. President Sako, in his message, highlighted specific issues such as economic strangulation and the destruction of key institutions, aiming to unite the people behind a vision of a prosperous, independent Ambazonia. A message like this from the president on such a day was a necessary reminder to rekindle the fire of Ambazonians, which is why you can see the determination in the Ghost Town Day on May 1st.
Meanwhile, before we move on with the other reports, we have Barrister Tim this year, who we all know as authority in the field of analysis when it comes to all issues as it relates to Ambazonia and even the entire world at large. We have Barrister Tim this year in the house, and we want to get his thoughts. Of course, we have journalists in Ambazonia and, of course, in the Cameroun who can't even think of freedom of the press. Well, whatever they say, they can say. But what is not guaranteed is their freedom after they have said or after they have written, depending on the area that journalist belongs to. Well, right after that, we want to hear his thoughts on, of course, the May 1st celebration that was a non-event in Ambazonia. Barrister this year, welcome to Undaunted tonight.
Well, thank you for having me once more. I'm happy to share my thoughts and views on the issues. So let me start. Talk about the World Press Freedom Day. It's like anything African, most African countries sign up to these conventions that creates international bodies, and in particular the World Press Freedom Day. So for them, it's a lip service. Absolutely nothing called press freedom in most African countries, and in particular the country we want to call ours, including that we the Cameroon. As you say, can they ever pretend to have any freedom of press? What is the press? The journalist is meant to. What's the arm of the journalist? The journalist carries no gun, carries no spear, carries no cutlass. All his or her arm is a microphone, or a pen and piece of paper. But what makes it important is that they are reporting something. Their report must be credible to teach, to inform the people, to inform the readership, the truth and nothing but the truth. But if you live in a country where they try to bend the truth to suit the purposes of the government, it generally loses its value. How many newspapers or media houses in our country, for example, give a fair report to what is going on in Ambazonia, what they call Northwest and Southwest? If you venture to do it, you arrest you, they will kill you. All of us know there was a young man called Wazizi. It was only an FM radio station, FM, frequency moderation, something that just go about 10 miles. Because he was telling the truth, without being critical of the government, they took him away, they killed him, or they ate him, we don't know. And for the years, since 2019, nobody has ever accounted for where he was buried. But we know that he is dead from the government. A young man like that, having no arm other than a small microphone, being arrested for saying some truth that the government did not want. Can one, for example, imagine there's no press freedom there? No. Shall we be that of a country, call it Ambazonia, or get back home? I think we're showing signs that will be very, very different. And I remember in the introduction, one of the news items you get was this projected meeting with the press, the Brazilian press, by the president. It take 2 days of next week. What is the essence? It's for them to know the truth and inform the world about the truth of what Ambazonia is. Tell the world what Ambazonia is not. If we are being open even to the foreign press at this time of the struggle, I can only believe that we're even going to be more open. The press is going to be freer in Ambazonia than in most other African countries, and most particularly like in their neighbor that we put the Cameroun, that knows not press freedom, nothing at all, rather than bending the news to suit their purposes, killing journalists where they need, arresting them if possible. And so that's about the press. Then I think you mentioned two items. Talk about the Labor Day. The Labor Day is one of the days that is decreed by international convention. As the president said, can Ambazonia have anything to celebrate? What is it about? It's to celebrate about labor, workers. They will talk about their conditions of work, appreciate what they have, express what they still need to make to improve. But has Ambazonia anything to celebrate in terms of labor? No. Ambazonia had a territory before these people invaded us of our institutions. As a government, the Southern Cameroon government had job creating institutions, organizations, companies that created jobs. They had, for example, the British Marketing Board, which was important in Victoria. They killed it, they did not replace it with anything. They stole the money that was in it. And the jobs that were in it went. That was the whole department that employed thousands of people annually. Rented property, rented vehicles, that kind of business. And people made money out of it. What things like Cameroun Bank? Cameroun Bank gave money to people to invest. People took loans from Cameroun Bank, invested, created jobs. For the population to enjoy, all these things are gone. What else is left of Ambazonia other than money? We expect now Ambazonia, for example, going down the streets in Kuala, or in Bafoussam, or in Yaoundé, as an internally displaced person, or in Nigeria as a refugee, to go celebrate Labor Day. Why are they celebrating? If there's anything, we should be celebrating. It should be mourning. At the very least, the government did not pay them for them. But they did their best. They worked in their small farms. They sold vegetables. They tilled the soil. They ate cassava. They had something to eat. And so with all these things gone, not by accident, but by deliberate machination, we have anything as Ambazonia to celebrate. Now, labor means movement. So we need to move. For those who are talking about social market development, the thing of putting social market, having the confidence that somebody will drive in Canada, they don't buy it. Somebody will come from the mountain, they buy it, and then your produce may end up going to Nigeria for a cup, going to Gabon. The farther it goes, the more money you pay shelter. All those things are wrong. They're already done. It's not by mistake. That would be for the years they have been with us. Everybody impoverished, kill whatever thing you get out of this in terms of jobs, in terms of anything that can generate money. And so, one more thing to celebrate, but just tomorrow. And let me just give this example. But all this cry every day, the Petazam Santa Road, and put some road, Amanda. Well, that's not where the road start at the end. How are you supposed to go right to Yaoundé and Douala. But why other Metaza? Metaza to Santa is barely 10 kilometers. The longest stretch of the road passes through Bunda to Bafusam, not across the river down. While the drivers drive through from Bafusam, pass through Bunda, if they get stuck at Metaza, just because it's 10 kilometers away. Is it a mistake? No, it's deliberate. And why is it deliberate? See, what we call the Northwest, what we call Bamenda, borders the western province of Cameroun. The western region, we call it, has about 9 divisions. All their 9 divisions are linked by well-paved roads. There's no single earth road back to any of the 9 divisions of the north of the western region. No. And then they construct the road, come and end it in Metaza. If you need 10 kilometers, you cannot go to Bamenda. And they want us to believe that these are people who care for us. And so that is where it is. As the President rightly put it, we have nothing to celebrate on the body. If nothing, we have to pray and pray that we do fight. There was 1 days of celebrations ahead. Those things will come, but nobody celebrates in time of war. Even if we were celebrating, say, in Boya, there was celebration in Boya, or in Bamenda. What do you explain to somebody living in Jikwa? What do you explain to somebody living in Batibu? Or somebody living in Bamisov? Or Jakiri? Is Ambazonia Kuba? Is Ambazonia just Bamenda? Is it just Manfe? No. One thing to say, even a few of those who have taken the underpaid jobs, call it civil servants, it's not worth celebrating. It is worth celebrating that we find ourselves where we are 60 years into independence. So that is it. That's what I have to say about that for now. Thank you.
All right, Barrister Tim Basia. We'll just take a look at what the press has been like in La République, especially looking at this very auspicious day. It's a great thing that you chipped in a thing or two about press freedom and how it has to do with La République, which certainly has not experienced the least about press freedom. So we'll just take a quick rundown about what has been happening in La République when it comes to press freedom, and we'll get into the rest of the report and we'll get back to you. So do hold on. We'll be back to you. Yes, as we told you, it is World Press Freedom Day today, May 3rd. So we'll take a look at what has been happening in La République and in the Cameroons in general. You know, we talked about how press is so important and all of that. But then there are challenges that the press, journalists, and the media in general get to face, which includes media suppression and press intimidation that we hope a day like this could bring a spotlight on to help tackle. Like I said, our case in point will be La République, that has been ranked top over the years as the worst jailers of journalists. When it comes to press suppression and journalist persecution, La République has proven over the decades to be a haven for that. La République has earned a notorious reputation as one of the worst jailers of journalists in Africa. The country's stifling press freedom, intimidation, and persecution of journalists have created a toxic environment for media professionals. This alarming situation includes the killing of journalists, forced exiles of journalists, and the suppression of independent media houses. Popular cases which we've brought severally on Undaunted includes the case of Samuel Wazizi, a journalist with a Boya-based independent media outlet who was arrested and detained in 2019 and died in detention in 2020, with the government claiming he died of natural causes, while his family and colleagues point to foul play. Martin Ezogo as well, a prominent journalist and critic of the government, was abducted and murdered in 2020. There are other cases of journalists who were forced into exile in order to not face subjugation and intimidation while carrying out their duties. Oh, well, taking a look at Mimi Mefo as well, an award-winning journalist who fled the Cameroons in 2018 after facing harassment and death threats for her reporting on human rights abuses. is one such case of a journalist in exile.
While Hansen, a journalist and activist, was forced into exile in 2019 after being targeted by the government for his critical reporting too. Well, as a matter of fact, the Cameroon Radio and Television (CRTV) has long been the dominant media house, stifling other media houses who are not pro CPDM or pro Franco Cameroon with their non Generian propaganda agenda. This has been seen in the suspension of the Post newspaper in Boya for taking a stance that didn't align with the government's agenda, even with ministers openly intimidating journalists, creating a culture of fear and self censorship. With all these going on with the press in the Cameroons, you now understand that La Republique du Cameroon consistent ranking as one of the worst jailers of journalists in Africa is no coincidence. The government's gangster-like tactics, intimidation, and suppression of press freedom have created a hostile environment for media professionals. The killing of journalists, forced exile, and stifling of independent media houses are all testaments to the government's disregard for press freedom and human rights. The international community must condemn Cameroon's action and support the courageous journalists who continue to risk their lives to tell the stories that needs to be told.
Oh, well, moving away from World Press Day, we'll take a look at more happenings on the home front. The former British Southern Cameroons, today the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, started so well until the unholy union with La République. After that unholy union of 1961, it has never been well with the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, economically, socially, infrastructurally, and other Ambazonia has been backpedaling as La République du Cameroun plots to destroy its heritage. From the outing of Cameroon's international lawyer Roland Abeng, a bad colonial government plagued with unfair laws, unscrupulous taxes, and high debts is carrying investors. This is another indicator that the colonial La République is not healthy for a country with people of integrity like Ambazonia.
While Ambazonia will continue to be polluted by a stench of the bad colonial government of La Republic du Cameroun. So the fight for the liberation of Ambazonia becomes just fight. A fight that must be given the utmost attention and the best of resources for its accomplishment. La Republic du Cameroun, a country where its so-called forces of law and order encourage young boys and girls to consume illegal drugs. You can agree with us that it's at this point hopeless. Reason why youths and theirs lose their senses and they go abroad at all costs. How can the youths of Ambazonia be protected by these evil colonial governments?
Oh well, the vices common with La République du Cameroon's colonial government, like unfair laws, unscrupulous taxes, and high debts, are the factors sending away foreign investors, as indicated by this lawyer Roland Abeng, an international lawyer, that the Federal Republic of Ambazonia staying in union with such a country simply means that investors would never consider Ambazonia as a potential investment ground. This implies that as it stands right now, Ambazonia is losing a lot. The way forward for Ambazonia is and has always been to regain her independence. Barrister Abeng stressed the detrimental impact these factors are having on the economy. In his words, in every single plan that leaves the Cameroons, there is an investor inside who has decided never to come back again. Isn't that sad?
Well, according to the 2020 statistics presented by the U.S. State Department, the Cameroons ranked 167 out of 190 on the Ease of Doing Business Index. Challenges like corruption, lack of transparency, unfair taxes, the colonial tendencies of La Republic du Cameroun towards Ambazonia have tarnished the business image of the Cameroons. These have contributed to Cameroon's exclusion from the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGWA, and recently from the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. Ambazonians must be relentless in their endeavor to come out of these evil practices and evil union called La Republique du Cameroun. Well, before we proceed with other reports, we would want to get Barrister Mbesier's thoughts on this.
Well, let me just focus on what Alistair Habin said. Now, having gotten into what we call the unholy union, where are we If there was no investment, it never been invested in Ambazonia. It is nothing invested there. First, not because there's nothing to invest, no, because of the economic policies that are designed to cripple what was once the economy of the southern country. In addition to the overall taxation rules, corruption, and otherwise, the economy of British Southern Cameroon has been directly and indirectly grounded after the kill. And so on the economic index, we are almost at zero. We've lost everything we had economically. And we're trying to pick up the spoils from wherever we can find them. And so, again, the Cameroon as a country is not worth investing there. And since, for now, any investment that has to take place in Ambazonia passes through the battlegrounds, it's passing through Yaoundé and Douala. There's nothing we can do other to fight and free ourselves. Our youths need their own jobs. But for companies to come in and invest, they need good laws. They need balanced taxes. They need transparent rules, not the rules that you find in there. They have taken almost everything. If you just look across the border to Douala, who are our neighbors, we have the where most of our people have fled to. What is a completely lawless stuff? Government. Would you imagine you're living in a house? The next day, the bulldozer is pulling down your house. There's nothing to explain for it. The next day, somebody is planting his own house in your own and claiming to have a land title over it. You have a business, they are taking it over. They took things like Cameroun Bank, they took things like Amity Bank, and they tried to take the cooperative union just to kill the economy of Ambazonia. And so they are not just doing it out of bad policies, they are doing it out of deliberate wickedness to destroy the economy, the economic foundation of Ambazonia. You don't need to go far to see this. It is documented somewhere. If you read Communication 26603, which is called the Banjul Judgment, all these things are outlined there. How they moved things from Boya, economic value, to them to Yaoundé and killed it. You took, for example, the National Printing Press from Boya to Yaoundé. House in one room. A few months after that, they sold the equipment, and that was the end of it. And so it is documented there, and they were asked in court. This was a court judgment where they were present. They were asked, "Why are you doing this?" The scholars had no answer. Why are you moving these things from Boya, from Bamenda? Again, the CDC, for example, that was once the people's property that employed 18,000, 20,000 workers in the 1960s, has become a share. There's absolutely nothing to show as an economic entity for Ambazonia. And to make sure they succeed, they moved the headquarters of the CDC from Bota to Douala. Why? Because the little money that they make, they pay taxes. Instead of paying their taxes to Victoria, they pay it to Douala. People will come to argue with me that, and no, if you go to Bota, you still see the structure standing there. Still building called the headquarters of the city. But it's nothing more than a building standing there. That's not the business part of it. The shipping office of the CDC is in Douala. And taxes are paid essentially until they ship out. And so they have done that very deliberately to kill the economy. They'll come and put a building or some small machine in Victoria and call it Sonara, put the pipes under it to pump the refinery, the crude gas to Douala, where it can be put in a ship and taxes paid in Douala. And so that is what we have gone through. Good enough, we're able to realize these things. What we're saying is documented everywhere. They're not just imaginations. And so we have come to realize that whatever took us to these people, for whatever reason, was the most unfortunate thing that ever happened to us. And I'll end this particular part of the story by quoting what somebody said on ethics. He said, uh, she said that joining the Republic was joining a group of uncircumcised Philistines. Uncircumcised Philistines. They are not even worth calling them neighbors. Because you don't call the man who rapes your daughter, who rapes your wife, or who murders your husband, the neighbor. If you are forced to live next to them, it's just a question of life and death. And so that is where we found ourselves. But again, this generation has stood up to say enough is enough. We stood up to say no. Not because we wanted to say no, but because they challenged us to dare talk again. If you open your mouth again, oh, you go to jail. If you talk again, we'll kill all of you. And they killed, they jailed, and we say, look, enough is enough. Never shall it happen again. We're out, never to go back to them anymore. Over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Barrister Basia. Well, meanwhile, we have more reports here. Just hold on a beat. We have a report about the road construction. Meanwhile, laws are meant to be respected. For laws to be effective, a law enforcement mechanism must be put in place. This is where the Amazonian State Army now steps in. The Amazonian State Army has been given the mandate to enforce the laws in the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. One of the laws in Ambazonia is the obligation for all and sundry to respect the Monday goes down, a law that defaulters deserve sanctions. And talking of sanctions, there is no respecter of persons when it comes to sanctions. In their discharge of their duty on Monday, April 29, 2024, the Ambazonian State Army set ablaze a bulldozer and a commercial motorcycle for violating the Monday goes down. That's why would all, but one could disrespect the Monday lockdown instituted by the government to alter La Republic de Cameroon's activities in Ambazonia? Well, this is where we are asking this sensitive question. Why will people disregard the Monday goes down when it has been stated since 2017? Why would they do that?
Why would they? Well, according to reports received, the Ambazonian State Army has burned down one of the bulldozers working on the Tugi-Bamenda Road in Momo County. The Ambazonian State Army carried out this act on Monday, April 29, 2024, in a resolve to enforce the Monday goes down. During the operation, a commercial motorcycle was equally seized and set ablaze for not respecting the Monday goes down. The operations was coordinated by self-styled General Danger. We all know that violence and destruction of property are not acceptable means of achieving goals, especially in a stabilized society void of conflict and struggle for liberation. Well, that being said, the Amazonian State Army's action can be understood in this context of their struggle for liberation and independence. The Amazonian State Army being the enforcement arm of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, with a mandate to ensure that laws are respected. In this case, the law requires all individuals to observe the Monday goes down, and the ASA, the Amazonian State Army, has taken it upon itself to enforce this law, even though going the extra mile by burning the bulldozer and commercial motorcycle. The Amazonian State Army is sending a strong message that the law will be respected and those who violate it will face such consequences. While violence and destruction only lead to more harm and suffering and should be avoided at all costs, it should be noted that a more peaceful approach has been used by the Amazonian State Army to educate the populace in order to achieve this goal with no loss and no casualties. But that wasn't adhered to some, even though it was adhered by a lot, by a very huge number. But the one victim whose bike rather got burned as a consequence of his disrespect to Monday lockdown.
Well, this year, 2024, in January, two road construction heavy-duty machines were burnt down in Ndodonga, Manchun County of the Savannah zone of Ambazonia. While the motivation behind the ASA's action can be understood, the focus has always been more about pushing the struggle for liberation to its completion without harming the innocent population in the process. Why those who are wise hearken to all the instruction from the Ambazonian government fully restored and its army, the ASA. Well, for months now, there has been no celebration whatsoever in Big Babanki, be it sad or happy event. This is a result of the people respecting the ban on all celebrations by the Amazonian State Army. The fact that for months the people of Big Babanki have not celebrated marriages, birthdays, or funerals in Big Babanki is a strong signal to the large public, to Cameroon, and the international community that powers in Ambazonia are now in charge. Ambazonians are now in charge of their country, and imposters must evacuate.
Well, Kejum Keku, Big Babanki, for the past month has been like a graveyard. Ever since a ban was instituted by the Amazonian State Army on weddings, birthdays, death celebrations, and other feasted activities were banned. For the last time, all weddings in Big Babanki have been taking place in Vivenda, and death celebrations, funerals, completely overhauled. The population was banned from entering the village palace for any activity, and that made the Kwifon vulnerable in discharging its responsibilities, like passing messages on market days and handling disputes in the village. But despite the presence of colonial troops in Big Babanki, these went on. Life was not smooth in the village, with popular squares all filled with grasses. Again, with the ban on activities, people were forced to respect this order from the ASA, which goes a long way to show whose hands power are in, especially looking at the fact that La Republique has its soldiers situated in the same Big Babanki. The Amazonian State Army's actions to ban celebrations in Ambazonia can be seen as a strategic move to demonstrate control and assert their authority over the territory. It also sends a strong message to the La Republique government and the international community that they are a force to be reckoned with. It also unifies the population and focuses their attention on the struggle for recognition and independence rather than diverting energy to celebrations. It also disrupts the status quo and challenges the existing power structures, including traditional authorities like the Kwifon and Fon, which may be seen as collaborating with the colonial government of La Republique. This ban that they put in Big Babanki as well created a sense of sacrifice and shared purpose amongst the population, building resilience and solidarity in the face of adversity.
The ban on activities in Big Babanki, Kejum Keku in Tuba local government area of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia by the Ambazonian State Army has today been lifted. The lift was pronounced by a voice that identified itself as Azoan, speaking on behalf of the army in Big Babanki. The voice announced that all celebrations that have been suspended are now allowed to resume. The voice made known the following activities that have been allowed to resume. It calls traditional civil weddings, funerals, birthdays, and other feasting activities. In the same audio, the announcer insisted that the ban on the supreme authority of the village, Kwifon and Fon of the village remains. By lifting the ban, the Ambazonian State Army may be signaling tactical shift or a temporal reprieve, potentially to 1. Allow the population to recharge and rebuild after a period of intense focus on the struggle. 2. Gather momentum and support for the next phase of their campaign. This ban lifting might pass on to other counties to lift their own bans on Amazonian celebrations. Right, we still have Barrister Base here in the house, and before we let him go, we would want to hear his thoughts on the actions of the Ambazonian State Army in Big Babanki and, of course, in enforcement of the Monday Ghost Down. Barrister Base here, let's start with what you think about the enforcement of the ghost down. Do you think that the Amazonian State Army are being strategic? Because, of course, just like the report stated clearly, they are only trying to ensure that the people respect the orders from the Amazonian government. So do you think that whatever action or this action that they have taken is a step in the right direction?
I think the ghost towns have been with us since the war started for at least 5, 6 years. And so there's nothing new about it. Those who become victims, like the motorbike rider, are people who are testing the grounds.
Okay.
I can get in that environment that not less than 50 bike riders, because that's the mode of communication. There was only one bike bench. Where were the rest? They all respected ghost town and back home. And this lone adventurer thought he could test the waters, and he had what he deserved. We've had the opportunity to say this many times before. An average bike rider will probably not even make 10,000 pounds a day profit after everything put together. The bike itself costs hundreds of thousands of pounds. So parking that thing down for 24 hours will do you no harm.
No harm.
But violating the ghost town, not because you want to do it, but to show your paymaster, the man who's encouraging you, the administration, the DO, the mayor, that you are above the law. It's your ego. You're just trying to show ego. And so there's a risk. You're standing the risk. You're trying the fire, and it got you burned. As I said, only one was burned. Where were the rest? In other words, the rest respected goes down. Probably packed from see what they would have wanted to go to the farm or whatever they were doing. And you tried it, you tasted the waters, and you saw it. You're lucky. You're very, very lucky. All your bike was burnt. Your life was spared. Could have died. Being caught under crossfire for violating ghost town is a legitimate target. So you try it, you lose your life, or lose your property, call it back, or no other thing that you might have. And so I think the ASA, who were trying to, and who have been enforcing ghost town, did just the right thing. You can then transition to the burning of what they call the bulldozer. If you see a bulldozer standing in the middle of nowhere and claiming to be digging a road, it spares something of the seat. It does something in Momo is a very various area. He said one old bulldozer stood there and said they're digging a road. We're digging no road. They're just trying to be simple. And if I look at it, that is very, very well, it's never more call a caterpillar. It's a front head loader. You don't do roads for front head loaders. That should be a D9, D10 caterpillar on that road. It was not. And so this was the price. That stretch of piece of land has been there forever. Before even we purportedly joined the people, there's no road there. If 60 years have passed, 70 years have passed, and they never thought of coming to dig a gutter there. What makes the people in that village think that bringing a front head loader, which is called a bulldozer, is they actually digging a road? They are digging no road. And so I will give praise to the ASA for doing what they did, for being able to do it, for assessing the situation and evaluating it. Then he take us to the big Babanki story. He said, Sunday will forget very soon. Last Saturday, President Sako, on the occasion of the draft for Midland, made a speech. In that speech, he called on our ASAs to take control where they are, not just to fight the war, but fight the war, take control. And that's the bare essence of the LGA and LGA, of the county by county. The fighters on the spot see what is on the ground, that they evaluate the situation and take steps. And that is just what they're supposed to do. In Babanki, they thought that they can leave this thing to a certain extent. And they still ban the quiffon and the police. Are these guys stupid? No, they are children from there. They children from there. So they know exactly the role the quiffon and the funds police or whatever thing you call it are playing. So I would think that they are executing the new policies that we don't just fight the war. We will fight the war, we take control of what we can take, manage it the way we can manage, to show the world, to show our own citizens first, and the world at large, that we are capable of doing it. And so I think what is happening in Big Babanki is a very good thing
Mm.
for other ASAs in different countries, in different areas, where it is possible, if we are comfortable, take control of the area. You were not celebrating marriages. The DO did not come there to do anything. The mayor did not come to do anything. They simply made that. And so it is an encouragement. It is a step forward, showing that the ASA are doing more than just fighting. They are taking control of the administrative areas that fall within their own jurisdiction. We can all congratulate them, thank them for taking the initiatives, and tell others to imitate what they are doing. Evaluate the situation where you are, take the steps that are necessary, and then we shall succeed. Over to you.
All right, Star, do you have a question?
Nothing, no questions actually. He just basically answered everything on my mind, especially pointing out the fact that the ASA are indeed taking control, looking at how they strip power from the fawn and quiffon of Big Babanki by, taking out every event happening in his palace. Well, the interesting thing is, even after this ban was lifted, that ban on the palace was still there to show that they have the power. Well, Baris, I think we've said it all. I think with that, we'll just call it a close with you on Undaunted with us tonight and get on with the rest of the news. Thank you for joining in.
Thank you for having me.
Well, on the African scene, Kenya's President William Ruto convened a special cabinet meeting to discuss measures to tackle the deadly floods that have killed nearly 170 people and displaced 185,000 others since March. Heavier than usual monsoon rains, compounded by the El Nino weather pattern, has devastated the East African country along with neighboring Tanzania, engulfing villages and threatening to unleash even more damage in the weeks to come. The cabinet will discuss additional measures to address the crisis, Ruto said. And he said his government is as well going to make sure that civilians who are victims of climate change, who today are suffering floods, they are suffering mudslides, are looked after. The Kenya government's prompt response to the flood crisis is commendable, but more needs to be done to address the root causes of climate change and mitigate its effect on vulnerable communities. International support and cooperations are crucial in this effort.
Well, the German ambassador to Namibia, Thorsten Hutter, and envoys from France, Spain, and Portugal attracted the ire of the Namibian government and the ruling SWAPO party after inviting Independent Patriots for Change leader Panduleni Itula to a lunch where they reportedly discussed various issues, including the upcoming November 27th elections. Their diplomatic role highlights the sensitivity of the Namibian political landscape. Ahead of the election, it is essential for foreign powers to respect their country's sovereignty and avoid any actions that could be perceived as interference.
Well, ahead of South Africa's general election on May 29th, the country's largest trade union federation, COSATU, has pledged in support for the governing African Nation Congress, the ANC. Despite previous criticisms that the ANC only seeks their backing during election periods, COSATU President Zingizwa Lucy reaffirmed their alliance at a Workers' Day rally in Cape Town. Lucy emphasized that COSATU will mobilize its 1.5 million members to campaign for the ANC, with a shared goal of addressing pressing issues like unemployment, crime, and corruption, and working towards a better life for all South Africans. Now, this endorsement is significant because COSATU's support is indeed crucial for the ANC's electoral prospects. It's worthy to note as well that COSATU's endorsement of the ANC is a significant boost for the party, but it also raises concerns about the union's independence and ability to hold the government accountable for its promises. The union must ensure that its support is not unconditional and that it continues to advocate for workers' rights and interests.
Meanwhile, the Zimbabwe African National Union Patriotic Front, ZANU-PF, has dominated Zimbabwean politics since independence in 1980 by carrying out severe crackdowns on the political opposition, critical media, and all sources of dissent. The politicization of food aid distribution in Zimbabwe has raised concerns about potential for discrimination and unfair treatment of certain groups, particularly those perceived to be opposition supporters. The ZANU-PF authoritarian grip on power has led to widespread human rights abuses and political repression. The international community must continue to pressure the government to respect democratic principles, protect human rights, and ensure a free and fair electoral process.
Well, in Africa still, the U.S. military has been ordered to leave Niger and Chad, which is a significant setback for the U.S. military's operation in the Sahel region, where groups linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State group operate. The U.S. had a military base in Niger, which was used for manned and unmanned surveillance flights and other operations, but the Nigerian government has suspended a military agreement with the U.S. and has demanded the withdrawal of U.S. soldiers. The withdrawal of U.S. troops from Niger and Chad is a significant blow to regional security efforts. The U.S. must reassess its military strategy in the Sahel region and work with local governments to build trust and ensure a stable and secure environment.
Meanwhile, in Togo, recent parliamentary election has brought attention to a proposed constitutional change that could potentially extend the rule of President for Guinea-Bissau, who has been in power since 2005. The opposition and religious leaders have expressed concerns that this legislation is an attempt to consolidate power and prolong their Guinea-Bissau dynasty's 57-year rule over the West African nation. The proposed constitutional change passed by lawmakers in March is nearing enactment. Critics argue that it would increase the likelihood of President Guinea-Bissau's remaining days in office beyond his current mandate, which repairs in 2025. The opposition has long accused their president of manipulating elections, including the one that brought him to power in 2005.
Well, in the lead up to this parliamentary election, authorities have cracked down on civil liberties and media freedom. Protests against the proposed constitution have been banned, opposition figures have been arrested, and the Catholic Church has been barred from deploying election observers. Furthermore, a French journalist was arrested, assaulted, and expelled from the country in mid-April, and the media regulator has suspended accreditation for foreign journalists. Well, in conclusion, Togo's parliamentary election has highlighted the controversial proposal to extend President Nasibe's rule, which has sparked concerns about democratic erosion and the suppression of opposition voices. Well, the international community should closely monitor the situation to encourage Togo's government to respect democratic principles, protect human rights, and ensure a free and fair electoral process.
Special announcement. In a groundbreaking move that resonates with the echoes of diplomacy and unity, President Sako is set to grace the Brazilian press with his esteemed presence. This visit isn't just a courtesy call, it's a bridge between continents, an effort to forge a diplomatic partnership and shine an international spotlight on the plight of Ambazonia. Brazil, known for its vibrant culture and spirited community, once again proves its commitment to global harmony as it stands by Ambazonia, rekindling the bonds forged back in 2019 when Bareri became a beacon of hope by officially recognizing and supporting the Ambazonian cause. Mark your calendars. On Monday, May 6th, 2024, catch President Sako live on podcast Voices at 4 p.m. EST, 9 p.m. Amba time, featuring the insightful Seder SD Aru and Ifadola Monica. Dive into a riveting discussion that promises not just to enlighten, but also to inspire. The diplomatic journey continues on Tuesday, May 7th, 2024, as President Sako joins the panel on podcast Influenciadores, anchored by the dynamic quartet of Tuli Rocha, Luciano Machado, Marcia Jodita, and Reverend Commando. Tune in at 4 p.m. EST, 9 p.m. Amba time for an engaging session that's bound to captivate. These monumental appearances encapsulate more than just talks. They signify hope, unity, and the relentless pursuit of freedom for Ambazonia. Echoing across the vast expanses, don't miss this exceptional journey of diplomacy and dialogue. Stream live across all ABC Amba TV platforms. Be part of history in the making. Join us in standing with Ambazonia, in seeking justice and forging alliances that span continents. Let your voice be heard. Let's make a difference together. Next week begins a new chapter. Be there. Be inspired. Be part of the change.
Well, across the globe, on a day off from his criminal trial in the Manhattan court, Donald Trump has returned to the campaign trail with back-to-back rallies in two battleground states. The Republican presidential candidate has appeared at times irritated or rhetoric in court while facing charges of falsifying business records, even at one point allegedly dozing off. But on Wednesday, at a rally outside the Millwick, Wilkerson, he seemed fired up as he spoke to a crowd of enthusiastic supporters for about an hour and a half. He hit on most of his campaign major themes: immigration, the economy, foreign policy, and his opposition to President Joe Biden.
Which spells the death of the American dream, and that doesn't even include some of the horrible numbers we're seeing flowing in from poor and crime-ridden countries right across our southern border. They're coming in by the millions. That's why this November, the people of Michigan are going to tell crooked Joe Biden, Biden, you're fired. Get out of here. The worst president in our history. There's never been anybody like him. In the past 3 years, the average Michigan family has lost $20,000 or $30,000. Think of this. $20,000 to $30,000 thanks to the Biden inflation tax. We have a new term. It's called a new tax. It's called inflation tax. We call it the Biden inflation tax. That's what's happened, record kinds of inflation. And his price hikes are continuing to drain nearly $1,000 from the a typical family each month loses $1,000 on other different taxes. That's what he's done to you. And by the way, for the auto workers, we'll talk about it later. Your cars are all going to be made in China. Congratulations. That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Chicken is up 24%, baby food is up 30%, eggs are up 50%, gasoline is up 54%, airfares are up 33%, and the 30-year mortgage rate just hit 7.6%. When I left, it was 2.6%. We had no inflation. Everything was so good.
As he usually does on the campaign trail, he frequently leaved his remark, "I'm 92% off teleprompter," he said, in an implicit grip at his Democratic rival, who he often accuses of being overly reliant on scripted remarks.
Well, still on across the globe, UK intelligence on consequences of Ukrainian attack on airfield in Russia's Kuban. The UK Defense Intelligence believes that Ukraine's 27th April attack on Kushyovska a Russian military airfield in Kuban will prompt Russia to redeploy its air defense. Let's take back the story because on 27th April, it was reported that the Security Service of Ukraine, SSU, along with the armed forces, had launched drone strikes on the military airfield as well as the Ilyich and Slavyansk oil refineries in Russia's Krasnodar Krai.
Meanwhile, North Korea plans to minimize economic damage from works moves to block imports of Chinese seafood. North Korean authorities are drawing up plans to minimize the economic damage the international community moves to block imports of Chinese seafood produced through the forced labor of North Korean workers. Well, in late February, the New Yorker ran an expose documenting how North Korean workers were forced to work in terrible conditions in Chinese seafood processing plants based on a report by the Outlaw Ocean Project, a non-profit investigative journalist outfit. Well, in response to criticisms that seafood produced by slave labor by North Korean workers in Chinese factories was exported to the United States, South Korea, and Japan, the U.S. Congressional Executive Commission in China called for an end to imports of Chinese seafood produced by North Korean food labor. The commission warned that U.S. consumers and the U.S. government were at risk of unintentionally supporting North Korean forced labor and financing North Korea's weapons program.
Well, U.S. accuses Russia of using chemical weapons in Ukraine's war. The United States has accused Russia of breaching the global ban on chemical weapons by using the choking agent chlorophyrin against Ukrainian soldiers and deploying riot control agents as a method of warfare in Ukraine. The use of such chemicals is not an isolated incident and is probably driven by Russian forces' desire to dislodge Ukrainian forces from fortified positions and achieve tactical gains on the battlefield. The State Department said in a statement on Wednesday that also announced new sanctions against entities linked to Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And with that, we've come to the end of the news across the globe.
Well, before we go, let's give you the highlights of our major reports for tonight.
Of course, today is May 3rd, World Press Freedom Day. We took a look as well as the May 1st Labor Day that was boycotted in Ambazonia, as well as La Republic's bad colonial governments carrying away foreign investors, according to the lawyer Roland Abeng, as we already know. Bulldozers set ablaze for working on Monday, as well as a motorbike in Tugi Bamenda Road.
Well, tonight on Undaunted, we told you that the ASA has lifted a ban on celebrations in big Babanki. We also told you on the African scene that Togo's parliamentary election concerns over presidential power grip and democratic erosions. Tonight on the front, and we also told you how Donald Trump is having a grip on Joe Biden. And that's it for tonight on Undaunted. Bringing to the news on George Stories. On behalf of Star Smart and the entire Undaunted crew, we say thank you for tuning in.
We'll leave you with ABC Amber TV Images. Good night and God bless you.